And I think that the guys believe in it, going back to falling back to your training if it does hit the fan, right? Like, it's not going to go to according to plan the whole time, but hey, these are our rules, and this is what the kids can believe in and fall back on, right?
Welcome back to the Coach and Coordinator podcast presented by Modern Football. Modern Football is built to help coaches turn information into better decisions when it matters most on game day. Modern Football gives you live tendencies, situational data, opponent insights, and in-game decision support, so you're not waiting until after the game to learn what mattered. To learn more, visit modernfootball.com and book a demo with me. Today we're giving you a preview of our newest Smart Clinic, which began last night for our live sessions, Move the Chains Situational Offense. One of the biggest challenges offensive coaches face isn't designing plays, it's having answers when defenses force you into difficult situations, like third down, pressure, simulated pressure, exotic blitzes, those moments when the defense is trying to dictate the game. In this clip, the Move the Chains Clinic Director, Caleb Corrill, sits down with Tyler Bolen, Brandon Labath, Billy Hugg, Lane Little, and Andrew Weeks to discuss one of the most important parts of offensive game planning, building a blitz plan. So let's jump into this conversation. It went over 2 hours. Definitely want to check it out. The link is in the show notes. Here's our coaches roundtable.
I think Coach Weeks did a hell of a job for us the last 2 years when he really got some more responsibility of setting up blitz plans for the week. But kind of explain to our group here and the listeners, what that is, kind of what goes into it, and how you take that idea and kind of work it up the chain, if you will, to make sure that it's represented in the greater plan of what's going on.
Yeah, I think for us, I originally learned this concept or the thought when I was at Iowa, and then a little bit at Bemidji as well the first time I was there. But for us, we go in with a normal down and distance protection plan, right? And the whole philosophy for that is we want to identify like where the pressure is originating from, right? So within our protection schemes, we utilize a point system. So the ultimate goal is to eliminate confusion, right? So having some simple rules and having built-in answers for your quarterback for basically every type of pressure that we're expected to see. So for us, like how that works is for us when we're watching and breaking down the game, starting Friday, Saturday, Sunday, however you want to think about it, we're going to identify their top 3 to 5 overall pressures, whether it's, 2 from the boundary, 2 off the edge, interior, doesn't matter to us. But we want to figure out what is their plan to attack. What is their bread and butter? And then from there, we're going to figure out what kind of situations will trigger that, right? So for example, when we're doing that, we're looking at, is it formation based? Is it personnel based? Right? There's going to be some teams that are going to be could be a little bit more aggressive versus 10 and 11, and they want to try to sit there and in 12. It all really kind of depends, right? So after we kind of figure out their tendencies and when they're sending those pressures, we there go to pressure location. And this is something that I learned at Bemidji with the pressure location in terms of where are they a heavy field pressure team? Are they a heavy boundary pressure team? Interior, double edge. Those are things when we label our pressures and everything like that. That is how we label out, hey man, they're a 75% field pressure team. You know what I mean? Don't care who's coming, whether they're rolling down safety or they're nickel, don't care. But that's who they are and who they want to be. Another one that, will come up from time to time is, are they pressuring your back? You know what I mean? 2 away from the back. I think that's a really big thing. There's some teams that do that a little bit more than others as well, but, that could be a huge indicator and kind of be able to set your protections up and cross protect your back a little bit from time to time. The next big thing for us, man, is going to be the number of blitzers. I think in today's age, man, I think there's a lot of really, really bright defensive coordinators that are buying numbers back in with simulated pressures and everything like that. So when we break down the game plan, in one of our huddle columns is actual number of blitzers. Is it a 4-man simulated, 5-man or 6-man? So when we are breaking those down, hey man, this is a real big 5-man pressure team, big nickel, from the field type of deal. Okay, so all those numbers are going into my thought process when it comes to building out those protections. Okay. Really, kind of the next thing for us is how do we get this information to the players when it comes to really breaking this thing down? Because I can sit here and be a super big, stat guy on all this stuff, but how do I teach this to the players? Number one is getting those rules and showing that when you build your blitz cut up, you show them the numbers, you show them the statistics, but how I do it is I start with the 3 or 4 main base pictures that you're going to see that week. If it's a true 4-down type of team, hey man, these are the pictures for us. This is how we're going to protect their base stuff, their base looks. And then I start adding in some of the easier pressures for us. So for example, hey, here's the next 4 clips are going to be sand pressure, sand pressure, sand pressure. Might be a different look, but front-wise, right? But that is how we start to build out the 5-man into the 6-man pressures with what we're trying to do. So on each type of clip that I show, I draw the ID and we talk through our protection calls, a lot of zone man protection for us. So that's how we kind of build that thing out from there, starting with our base stuff and our drop back and quick game type stuff. Okay, but other than that, our center kind of has the keys to the deal. He's the one making the IDs for us and everything like that. He can flip protections, and then on the other side, I meet with Coach Hine, our offensive coordinator, who is talking with our quarterbacks in terms of his pre-snap checklist, in terms of front, talking through the point. Like I said, if the quarterback doesn't like it, like the one thing is, like for us, our centers don't know who the quarterback's hot off of, right? So the quarterback is going to have the keys, the ultimate keys. Okay, so I think that's a really big thing to understand is like, hey, if we're throwing hot off something, he wants to change the slide, and the center's like, hold up, like we should pick this guy up. No, I'm hot off him. You know what I mean? So I think having the quarterback dialed into the ultimate override, I think, is really important because the center and the O-line's not always going to be dialed into the pass game like that, right? But I think from the quarterback standpoint, this is some of the stuff that we talk about is who the ID is, okay? Potential pressure locations based off of rotation of the shell, okay? So obviously he's dialed into 1 high, 2 high type opportunities, and I think the other thing too is like their demeanor. We talk about it. Excuse my language, but if a defensive guy's pissing down his leg, hey, these guys have a hard time, holding their water type of thing, okay? And I think that's a big thing for us, and identifying pre-snap demeanor is a really big thing for us. But yeah, I'll kind of that's just kind of our philosophy, man, in terms of the normal down and distance type of stuff, and establishing answers with quick game. I think that's a big thing for us too in terms of being able to play off of the hots and stuff like that once you start getting and seeing some of that pressure.
Coming to you weeks after this, but one thing, and I don't want to speak for you, Brandon, but as we were kind of figuring out our situation, I was impressed the first time that we were kind of in charge of the plan, but I really liked when we had a unique structure, but I liked when we would show, you would have your blitz cut up, as you mentioned, with the big guys. And I always thought that they were really well schooled and versed in what was coming. But I think it was maybe that Friday, like you and I would stand up there and we would kind of, streamline that exact order for the whole offensive picture to see. And I thought that was really informative of, hey, this is, when we're in this situation, this is what I'm looking to call, and we're kind of bouncing it off the quarterback, and then you would jump in there and like, hey, this is how we're going to protect it. This is where you're hot at. This is where, we could have some trouble in this particular situation. But I thought that was a really, I thought it was a great way to do it because it wasn't, as a Friday coordinator deal, but it wasn't all about me standing up in front of them as, hey, let's use your knowledge and the plan you built all week and now give it to this entire group of guys. And so I'm sure you guys do something similar, a more streamlined version of Bemidji, but I thought that was really productive, the way that we were kind of handling that stuff.
And on top of that too, I think it shows the kids like, hey, these guys are, like we've got a plan. right? And I think that the guys believe in it, kind of going back to falling, back to your training if shit does hit the fan, right? Like it's not going to go to according to plan the whole time, but hey, these are our rules, and this is what the kids can believe in and fall back on, right?
Love it. All right, Coach Weeks, kind of hit us with your flow on that, and then I'm sure you guys do some similar, but I want to kind of round it out with some of the things that we were doing at the end of the mount run of just, you getting in front of the quarterback and some of those different procedures, very similar to kind of what Brandon and I were trying to build to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, no different than what Coach was just talking about. When you're building out a protection plan, to me, it always starts with, what's the formation structure? Are you looking at a 2-2 blitz path, a 3-1 blitz path? Some of the different empty and condensed stuff that I know that a lot of people are getting into now. What type of blitz pass are you seeing there? Obviously, Coach hit it right on the head. Are they bringing, is it a 4-man pressure from a 3 down front? Are they doing different sim pressures? How many defenders are they bringing? I think all that stuff's really important to just understand as you as the offensive line coach and you as an offensive staff are putting together what your plan is. And then, beyond that, taking it to the kids, something that we spend a lot of time on is that same blitz cut up, being able to go through it. And it's not just, obviously as you operate in a system and, you get comfortable with your protection rules that you're teaching and that you're coaching on a consistent basis, obviously you know what's going to kind of break some of those rules sometimes. So it's, it comes down to, in protection, the number one rule is to protect the quarterback. So sometimes there is going to have to be the flip the turns. There's going to have to be some of the specific game planning that breaks some of the rules, the way that you set protections with the running back and in a more traditional spread passing game. And then, ultimately, location matters is a big thing for me when I'm talking about blitz, about blitz pickup with the O-line specifically. When we're in meetings, each defender has a home location in the front, where they're supposed to line up in a base situation. That adds on a little bit more to, what Coach was talking about with the tells. Hey, this defender's plus his home right now. Why is he plus his home? What can we expect with that specific look? And then, being able to take it on as some of your guys get older, being able to see safety structure, being able to see some of the stacks on the perimeter, being able to see the, different ways that a team's going to bring cap pressure in a given week, for example. And then, to kind of finalize it with, what we were doing at Mount St. Joseph, we had a pretty stringent set of rules that we were working with in pass protection. And, we got to a point where we knew where some of those rules were broken. It was some of the different passes that we saw, especially, looking at, the Rose Holman types at that point in time, where they were doing a lot of 7-up stuff and manipulating some of the things that we were doing. There was some confusion with where the free hats were coming from. So, I spent about 35 to 40 minutes with the quarterback those last 2 seasons I was at Mount St. Joseph, just sitting down with him, giving him the tools that he needed to be able to answer a lot of questions, because that was, I've lived in 2 different worlds. Right now, the O-line in my world is, takes care of most of the protection issues, where at Mount St. Joseph, we had to put a lot of that on the quarterback. So, hey, they've got double mug in the A-gap right now. We're in 6-man protection. This is what we gotta manipulate with the running back to be able to make that right. When you're getting this specific look with a blitz path, this is what you need to do to be able to get the running back to the right spot with some of the different cross keys. We got to a point with some of the Rose Holman stuff where they were walking double A-gap. They had double A-gap mugged up backers. We got to a point where we were just walking the back a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage to be able to handle some of the pick game stuff that they were doing inside, trying to beat the center with some of that stuff. So it boils down to, you got to be able to get the the offensive line and the quarterback on the same page as to what the tools are to be able to be the on the field coordinator, be able to make the adjustments on the fly. And then sometimes it's as simple as, my solution might not be the easiest. Sometimes when I was watching with the quarterback at Mount St. Joseph, when I'm watching these cut-ups with the offensive line now at Fairmont State, they might have a better solution than me. So being able to hear out, some of the different discussions that they have, hey, coach, this might be an easier way to get to this. Hey, coach, this is this is easier for us to remember that way. Give them the ownership and being able to do that, because at the end of the day, we've all talked about it. It's not us that's going to. I'm not going out there to block somebody on a Saturday. I got to get my 5 guys to be able to go block the right 5 people, and I got to get the quarterback and the running back in the right spots too.
This episode is presented by Modern Football. I'm excited about modern football because I'll be using it this season as the offensive coordinator at Bay High School to help with my in-game decision-making. The last time I coached, I had two coaches charting during the game. One charted my calls, the other charted the defense, and after each series, they would get together quickly to try to identify efficiency, explosives, and defensive tendency patterns so they could get useful information to me before the next series. Sometimes we got it fast enough to use, other times not so much. And a lot of the truly actionable information didn't really come together until halftime. Modern football takes that old, inefficient pen and paper process and turns it into real-time insight. As coaches, we spend all week preparing for situations like third down, red zone, backed up 4-minute, 2-minute, etc. But on game night, things move fast. You need the insight and the solutions now, not after the game. That's why I'm really excited about using modern football. With AI reports and my own pre-programmed prompts, we can ask the right questions after every series and make better decisions before the next one. For me, that's the biggest value. It's not more data, it's better information when the next call actually matters. To learn more and book a demo with me, visit modernfootball.com or click the link in the show notes. Now, let's get back to our roundtable segment from Move the Chains.
Yeah, what I can say about both of you guys in your own unique ways is I thought you took complicated information and simplified it. Brandon talked about, okay, here's the set of rules. Weeks understood when we were working together, okay, where our break points were, and then we kind of manipulated it to, truly make it, life extremely simple on the offensive line, but keeping it categorized, not making more than it is. And both those guys, when I worked with them, I would usually go, okay, tell me where's the break point at? How much do we have to be worried against? They kind of got a feel for what I like to do. Okay, where's our break point in this picture or against this concept? And we could get to the crux of, the situation. And with both of those guys, we did. I really like I think you got to pick it up live and whatnot, but I really like the actual way to do a blitz pickup period where whether you're bringing the defense down or you're doing it with your guys of taking your 5, taking your 6, potentially your 7, and working through those blitz patterns throughout the week in an isolated format where it's not about the physicality. It's about the identification. It's about the communication. It's about being able to pass off, different internal movements. Those things I thought when we were able to get those going were highly effective because it really allowed, them to focus, with that group of humans on how to get those things picked up. And then we could, extrapolate it out into the team reps because you can only do so many, team versus, prep looks in general that are worth anything. And so making sure that you find valuable time to carry over that teaching where you can still, get off the reps that you need, in a given week. And I would do the same thing for those guys when we would kind of script out the team looks as, hey, like Brandon, fire away. Like in this on Wednesday, like if you need to bring it. And I would let Brandon script out stuff. And we had a different way of kind of doing it to mount, but it's the same principle. We say, hey, we need to see this stunt 5 out of 10 times. Like we got to see it 50% today, or we need to see this pressure when you line up in empty. We got to see this pressure today. As much as you don't like it, like that's got to happen. So making sure that if you got guys that understand how to build blitz plans, I guess my perspective is let those guys operate. Let those guys build it. Let them communicate it. Let them cross platform with different positions. I think there's a lot of guys that are afraid of, well, the O-line guy's talking to the quarterback coach. Well, I know the O-line guy is looking at that tape more than the quarterback's guy. And I know that, that information is best going to be streamlined directly from the source, where I don't need to be the one telling the quarterback every single thing. We're getting in the big picture and the overall idea of what's going on. Let your offensive line guy, if they're capable, operate with those quarterbacks. Let's go to this kind of skill guys. Coach Little, from a little bit.
Caleb,
go ahead.
Real quick, I think this is a really important nugget off of that really quick on that I'll share. One of the things, like you mentioned with the scout team, like getting a look is hard. One of the things that we ended up actually transitioning to later in the season was just going not live, but getting live looks against open script against your own team during the middle of the season. You know what I mean? Whether, hey, it's a blitz pickup period and getting those live pickup looks, even if it might not be a look that you're seeing during the week, but that is something that really helped our guys when we talked about, like, we came to the bye week, like, coach, we need a little bit more, actual live looks at some of this. We're not getting it from the scout team. All right, well, let's go against our defense here, and get those guys on our toes and ready to roll. That's something that little nugget that we took, and it ended up helping us.
Yeah, it just kind of opened up another thing. I agree. I know our defensive staffs are kind of operating in a similar world. We do one. I mean, we started from the first day of spring ball, and we run it all the way through camp, and we can get it any time. Is we open, and Coach Hug and Coach Little have seen it. Like, we open with like a blitz period to start practice. And as a quarterback, offensive guy, like, I hate it, but it is really good, especially if you have a team that will. Because basically the way we format it is we show we show an empty picture. We're gonna do a 5-man, from 11 or 10 personnel picture. We're gonna insert protection, and then we're gonna get some type of 7 slide movement pass. So we're getting all our different protections, and we'll get sims, we'll get 7-up, we'll get field pressures, boundary pressures. Kind of really the defense gets to dictate what the pressure is. But I'm with Brandon. At some point, it's nice to be able to scientifically get the exact looks. But everybody in here, Brandon's mentioned, everyone in here knows that that's not that common to be able to just dial up exactly this picture versus that picture, and this is exactly how it plays out on Saturday. I'd rather get full speed, high quality reps where maybe it's not exactly the way, but at the end of the day, pressure is pressure, and you could kind of, if you work with your defensive staff, like, hey, can you give us a little bit more of this? I'm sure your guys did the same thing. Like, we need to see this type of sim, or we need to see this type of field pressure in those looks to kind of get our guys training. And then the speed of it is just always going to be faster. Like, it's just what Brandon said, it's just going to be better. And it's the same thing that we would do in scale with the ones, like good on good scale. It's like, okay, we may bypass it or minimize the reps if it's was a middle of the field close team for a specific week, but we would take those reps. And that's really where we would work on some of our higher level stuff, just to see if it was actually going to work against a well-schooled defense. So I agree with that, Brandon. That's a really good point. Coach Little, from your perspective in the pressure world, what's your overall mentality when you're stepping into a week where there is going to be, whether it's an onslaught of pressure or that this team's got a higher capability with their pressure, as far as kind of building your plan and attacking it and trying to address the pressure that you see from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think it kind of comes back down to, like, we kind of started dealing with some more of the sim stuff and, all that pressure stuff. And I think it was 2023 versus Bluffton where they kind of got into it a lot against us. And, we felt like we had a good game plan for it, but we weren't necessarily fully prepared. And then the year after, the 2024 season, is like, okay, like, this is what, we spent a lot of our offseason preparing for. And, I think it's a good mixture of, like, having the right, screens, quick game stuff to get it out to guys, and then also having a couple designers in there based off of, like Coach Week said, like, everyone's going to have a home, right? And then finding the tendencies in their stuff too. Like, when they do all that kind of stuff, like, I want to find the tendencies that they have when they're lining up, right? So in this example, the Mike linebacker lined up in the exact same spot every time. Well, okay, well, like, we can tailor our rules to protect there, to trap him, to do all these kind of things we want to do in that kind of game plan for that week, and then relaying the message to the quarterback. And then a lot of it comes back down to, like Coach Labath said, like, a lot of it comes back down to the shell of the defense, the structure of the defense, right? Like, and like getting a lot from you guys at Georgetown, it's like, okay, they can only hide it as much as they want to, right? It's still going to be a 1 high, 2 high, man eyes, zone eyes for the quarterback of, okay, what are they showing? Are they all up? They still have a 2 high structure, right? Or do those guys have man eyes? Or do they have zone eyes? And just kind of, relaying those messages to the quarterback to give them a better, answers to the test per se, that kind of get us into the right stuff week to week.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that Bluffing game taught us quite a bit, didn't it, Coach Weeks?
Taught us a lot.
Coach Bolen, I know there's some, yeah, that's quite a bit. Your perspective facing a pressure operation, where does your mind go and how to try to mitigate it from your seat?
Well, for us, we like to be more spread out against it. It's harder for them to show it. They have to show it, and if we're more spread out, defense got to tip what they're doing sooner than if we're in a more tight or heavy look. And we like that. Just makes it easier for the quarterback. Make whether it's RPO or RPO read or just a run read or quick game, knowing he's got to get rid of the ball, or build in Hodson or in our drop back. But just having those answers in our base plays and really keeping it simple for him is our biggest plan with that.
Yeah, I think formationally, I know Brandon would do this when it was kind of the inverse, but like I think obviously spreading them out to kind of undress is one. I know there's a particular week, I can't remember who it was, maybe it's Drake because they were chaos, was, hey, if you get in 12, or there was some type of formation 12, or if you get in maybe it was quads, like you're gonna mitigate their pressures because they're not going to be able to, it's a abnormal formation for them. And so I think that there's something to be said about, I'm pretty aggressive when it comes to it, but I also know that I want to have some structures on the front end that may stress their alignment rules, their communication rules, or pressures. I think motions do a lot for uncovering, especially in your cover zero worlds, like uncovering who is actually guarding who. Your home or your return motion from your back, setting them out there. Are they going to set it to the man? Is it going to stay in the zone? I think those are important. Taking motion across the field, and are people following? Are they tilting over? Are they passing it off? Meaning it's probably going to be in some more of a zone world. I think if that's built into your system, I think some of those things that your kids are already comfortable with are really helpful tools to just, hey, this is what we're going to try to undress this deal. If we got walked up, double mug backers, if we move the back out, who's got the back? I think there's some ways there to help try to mitigate. And if nothing else, it's going to create communication within their operation. And if you have some easy outs, I think those are always good ways to kind of keep the aggression on your side. Coach Hug, you coached running backs last year, so kind of talk to me a little bit about like your role with running backs in like a pressure week, and then maybe transitioning to the receiver world. Like, where are your focal points coming in as a position coach in a pressure plan week?
Yeah, I think from a running back perspective, it's just like all you guys said, watching film throughout the week and, really identifying where the pressures are going to come from and relaying that to the guys and being like, hey, we're responsible, hey, if we're on the man side, we're responsible for this linebacker to the nickel or the star, like this is where our eyes need to be. And I think that all starts with the game plan process throughout the week. And I know Coach Little and I have talked about this this offseason, but of just breaking down the film a little bit better. So we have a idea on, hey, when do they like to bring pressure? They have heavy third down, they're bringing pressure on third down. This is their favorite blitz, this and that, and making sure that we have exactly what we want and relay that to the players. And I think showing the running backs on film, hey, this guy, he has a tell. This is when he's coming. His eyes are looking, or he's tipping his hat. He's creeping into the box a little bit, and showing those guys those things so they can, pre-snap when they're out there, just like a quarterback. Hey, use your eyes and ID those things so you're ready to step up in protection. And I think that's the biggest thing from a running back perspective. And from a receiver perspective, I think you said it real well, but how can we formation them? How can we motion them to create advantageous matchups for our guys and get the ball to our playmakers quickly? But I think that you guys really said it all with that. I think going turbo or tempo is really huge for that as well. I think we do a really nice job with that. But, where, hey, if we catch them, in a blitz and then we bust off a long run, hey, let's go fast. Let's not let them get set and do it again. And letting our guys know every week, hey, we're going to go fast if we bust off a long run, if we get a big play. So we can't allow them to just, sit there and, rip us apart. So, and I think the receivers just have to ID that, if they get a matchup, if they have the man eyes and they know, hey, we call choice, we're going to take a shot here. We got to protect it and we got to go win. They got to know what's happening. They got to know the situation. So if they get that, just realizing, hey, we don't have a lot of time. I got to go win. I got to win fast and I got to go score.
Yeah, I think it was Brian Hartline. I know we started saying it at the end of the Mount St. Joe deal is we would educate those receivers like you're not rushing the D line, you're not rushing the defensive back, you're rushing the D line. Like you got to be aware of, the timing of when these footballs are, got to come out like you mentioned. I think that's really important. We talk a lot about, with, a common one is with, cat alignments where we got this heavy inside eye corner to the boundary and a safety that, they're trying to hide it, but they're on this hash, that they're kicked off the hash. call it. And what we tell our guys is, Coach Keller, receivers coach, just says, call it. What's the worst thing that happens? He doesn't come, but it's awareness to it. And then, it's been built in. This is how we're going to answer that type of pressure, within the rules of our system. So if it does come, and for whatever reason our quarterback's blind to it based on the concept, or his eyes are more towards the field, we have an awareness to it before the snap. And another thing I think is really important is, I know when we were facing the Baldwin Wallace teams that I thought did a really good job with pressure plans is the mindset of, I used to kind of to get really reduced and simple or safe against pressures, just so we wouldn't, get the quarterback hit. And it was still an intention of ours. But I play with the idea of, you got to fight fire with fire. This is a pressure team, whether you're running into it, whether you're throwing into it. I know Coach Weeks, designed, I watched the play the other day where we were seeing that nickel to the B gap pressure against Baldwin Wallace, and you had to check for it. And all of our kids knew, and we beat it. And I don't know how many times they ran it or didn't run it after that, but I know the year prior it gave us a lot of fits. You had broken it down. They ran it 17 times, 12 times as a negative play for us, right? And so, but having an aggressive, we had a blitz plan for it, but we had aggressive call into it. I think that's part of the deal. And that was kind of my mentality when we were trying to scheme up that Drake team in 24, Brandon, where it was like, yeah, they're going to bring all this nonsense, but we need to give it back to them, because if we just sit there and let them do what their intentions are, it's probably going to play into their hands. So, and sometimes if it's a flatline defense, like, run the ball directly into it, and they might tackle you for one, but if you can get that thing through that first level, there's not a second level at that point. So just being cognizant of your aggression level when you're facing a pressure team. You want to be sound, you want to be secure in your protection plan. But I think one of the worst things you can do is play into the defense's hands, and now they're kind of initiating the pace of play or the physicality of that game based on how they want to approach you. So I think it's kind of twofold, but making sure you have both easy outs that kind of keep you in rhythm, but have some more shot or direct hits at them, that if it does hit, it may be all of it, and it could be run or pass, but being aggressive with that mentality, I think that's important.
Thanks for listening to this special preview from Move the Chains Situational Offensive Symposium. If this conversation helped you think differently about building a blitz plan, organizing protections, or preparing your offense for pressure, you'll find even more practical ideas inside the full clinic. Move the Chains includes more than 15 on-demand presentations covering openers, third down, red zone offense, 2-minute, situational planning, and offensive game management from coaches who are doing it at a high level. You can get instant access today at coachandcoordinator.com. The link to this clinic is in the show notes. For everyone at the Coaching Coordinator Network, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.